Hi, everyone. Welcome again to Doctors and Coaches podcast. Today's topic is developing critical thinking with Dr. Cindy Sanders.
So, hello to everybody. It's finally cooling off. It's November and it's finally getting to where you're not thinking that you have to wear no sleeves, right? Because it's been pleasantly warm on and off, right? And so I think by now it's like, okay, we're getting ready for the holidays, which I love, and I guess everybody else does too. So, when you think about critical thinking, I want to talk about that. You know, I want to talk about it in the clothes you wear, right? So if when it starts to turn cold, right? But you're not sure, will it be warm? Will it warm up this afternoon? Is it going to be sunny? Right? All of those things. Critical thinking allows you to say, I think I'll wear layers. I think I'll wear 3 layers of clothes and carry my umbrella just in case, right? Critical thinking allows you to look at your circumstances, use what you already have experienced and know from your lived experience. But here's what I'm experiencing now. Here's from my lived experience. And I think it would make sense to fill in the blank, right? And that's really what critical thinking is. It's not this magical thing that is free from your lived experience or the situation you're in. It allows you to look at what is, think about other things that could be added to that, make a decision and a path about how you think you can move forward, right? And or in a different direction. So for me, when I think about critical thinking, I think we kind of poo-poo clothing choices. Well, you ought to have known to wear a sweater, but I didn't wear one. Why? What happened out here that I should have thought about so I knew I could wear a sweater, right? Or what happened out here that I realized I should bring something like a rain hat or an umbrella. What's happening out here? What information do I have? And so I think with critical thinking, we teach we teach kids all the time how to think critically. And nothing is quite such a learning experience as when you forget your sweater and you get cold, or you wear your long sleeves and it's hot, right?
Yeah.
You go, I'm not doing that again. You had a lived experience that tells you to be more careful. So I just think when we talk about critical thinking, I think a lot of times we think that's like academic thinking or scientific thinking, and it is, but it's also life skill thinking. It's also saying, hmm, what's going on here? What can I learn from this? Where might I take my next step? So I hope that when we're working with young people, and all of you who are on this podcast probably do work with young people, I hope that you're asking yourself, right? Instead of saying to them, take your umbrella, put on your raincoat, wear long sleeves, wear short sleeves, wear shorts. Instead of telling them what to do, why don't we talk with them about what to do? Bless you. Talk to them about what to do so that they can learn to do it. It's
Think
not as efficient as telling them, but it's far more effective because what you're teaching them is in practical, day to day ways to think. Bring a brain, everybody, right? I mean, that's what we're looking for. So I hope that in our discussion about critical thinking, that we can talk about things that just really help people think, whether they are a young person or an old person or a middle of the road person, it doesn't matter. We really all need to be thinking so that we can make good choices and we can develop agency, which we've talked before about on these podcasts, that I make choices that can benefit me, and if I think about it, I can do it well. So I'm with all that, chime in anytime you'd like, or we can start with questions.
all right. Start the first question. First question is, what is critical thinking and why is it important for youth?
Well, I think I kind of answered what it is. It's the ability to think through. It's the ability to take and apply your lived experience to your current experience. And I think that's really, really important. But why is it important? I think that's different. Um, Throughout life, you have to make decisions. And if you do not know how to think critically, you can be making some that could be really detrimental. So, for instance, um, you suddenly decide that you'd like a new car, and you go out and you want to buy a new car. You're looking for that. That's something that'll make you happy. And they tell you the payment's going to be $825 a month. And you think, I can't afford that, but I really want the car, so I'm going to do it anyway. That's an impulse buy. That wasn't you thinking about it critically. What would I have to adjust in my budget? How many more hours would I have to work to bring in more money? Right? Because all of those things are part of critical thinking, right? It's not, things don't happen in a vacuum. We have to consider that. And so if I don't teach you that as a child, how will you spend your $1.50 in allowance or in the money you earned from smooshing bottles, plastic bottles, or your birthday money? If I don't help you go through this process of thinking about it and deciding what is it you really want? What do you want out of this? What's the outcome you're looking for? Then I'm robbing you of being able to learn this when the stakes aren't high. Stakes aren't high when you've got $1.50 and you have to decide how to spend it. Now, it seems high stakes to you if you're five, but it's not high stakes. It's not going to keep you from eating. It's not going to get you kicked out of your apartment because you can't pay rent, right? It's not going to do those things. But when you become an adult and you suddenly have to think critically and you haven't had that layered and scaffold all along the way, it's a big ask because what you're doing is buying on emotion. And that's why, Walmart has end caps and they work. You buy the stuff on the end cap. You buy the stuff up at the cash register. Oh, I didn't think I wanted that candy bar, but now that I see it, I think I really need to have it, right? And they know that because you buy on emotion. You buy on how it makes you feel. And so what we want to do is help people understand I can want that new car, but I really can't afford it. I would have to do these three things to be able to put that in my budget, and I'm not really willing to do those three things. So that to me is why we learn to critically think when we're a child, because the stakes are not high. But when you get to be an adult, the stakes are always high, always.
I like that. Um, well, I just think it's really important for youth, because it just builds independence and sound judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
And
very
don't
vital.
we all exercise unsound judgment from time to time?
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Even when you can think critically, you'll still do things impulsively, right? Because it just feels good right now.
Yes.
But you can't operate your whole entire life that way. Parts of it have to be planned strategically.
Mhm. Definitely.
Yep.
Next question is, how can I teach you to analyze and evaluate information?
Well, the obvious answer is to have them do it, right? Have them practice that over and over. But I think that it's really important to help kids understand about communication. And I think that because it's communication that you're evaluating, because communication provides you information. And so if I can look at that information and say to myself, well, what's in it for that person for me to, if I go their way of thinking, what's in it for them? What's in it for me? How might it be helpful to them? How might it be helpful to me? How might it be harmful to them? How might it be harmful to me? Right? I think it's that ability to analyze that and to go with your gut feeling. And I read this. Well, it was supposed to be a joke, but it was really pretty sobering. The comment was made by a comedian. Who other than an adult who has learned not to trust their gut gets on an elevator to go 50 floors without stopping with somebody who creeps him out? It's true, right? We put ourselves in situations that creep us out because we don't rely on that instinct. We've learned that, well, we've made excuses. We do all kinds of things. So I think that part of analysis is to step back and ask yourself, what's really going on here? And recognize that you may not get to the bottom of it, but you've got to start peeling back the layers of the onion because something is going on. And what you need to do is figure out what that is, and then you can think critically about it. You can say, yeah, I like that enough that I'm willing to go along. I don't like that enough and I'm not going along, or I'm not sure. Let me push it one way or the other.
Yeah.
But that's to me how you analyze it and evaluate it by doing it, but by giving yourself some sort of a system to go through, questions to ask, gut reactions to feel and respond to.
Like that. I was just also thinking like, you can also use like literacy, like using like media literacy exercises, like comparing like
Mhm.
two news articles about like the same event and discuss like the differences in tone and facts and biases. Like that would be like a way of like, because it's usually like you have two side, like the two newses, they do different,
Yes.
yeah, different tones, they use different facts, and
Right.
that'd
Well,
be
and you can make facts say anything you'd like for them to say, right? You can spin them. And if you're wondering if there'll be enough material out in the world for you, just watch any political debate and you'll discover why
oh
somebody's right and somebody's wrong, right? Because that they love to do this. Point fingers. It's all your fault.
Next question is, what strategies promote logical reasoning skills?
So I think understanding logic is that 1 + 1 = 2, right? This plus this is going to end up here. And I think that the challenge with that is that there are always anomalies and 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, right? I mean, it just doesn't. And so what I do think that you can do is to teach kids to ask themselves questions, to go through a protocol that says, what am I being asked to do? Does it make sense for me to do it? Would there be any harm for me or others if I do it this way? Will there be any benefit if I do it this way or that way? Right? To go through that so that you can be looking at actuals. Are there examples of where it's happened before? Looking at your own best thinking about it, but doing it in a systemic way so that you're not jumping from here to here to here to here and then wonder why you can't make sense of it. Because when events happen, we can make sense of them. We just need to ask. And then the other thing I like to ask is this: what do I think is happening here? Okay, this is the event. I've witnessed it. This is what I think is happening here. I like to say, is there any other explanation for this? Is there any other thing that could explain what just occurred? Because that way you get out of your own way. Because a lot of times, and most times, two people don't see things the same way, right? I see it this way, you see it that way. So, for instance, uh, right now, all of the people who are viewing this podcast see you and me. We see you and me too because we don't get to see them, right? So we can't react to how they're responding because we can't see it. We can't tell. And a lot of times I think that we are blinded like that. We can't really see what's going on because we're so right here, right now. So I think that reasoning skills and logical reasoning skills, does that make sense? Would it make sense to do that? And what would be the outcome if you did it that way? Are really helpful uh, protocols, processes to teach kids so that they can think more critically.
Definitely, 100% of that. I was just thinking of using like cause and effect mapping, like have students like trace how one action leads to another. Um,
Oh, yeah, you right. What happened? What happened when you did this? Cause and effect.
yes,
Yeah.
and and then I was like the what if questions as well,
Hmm.
like encourage them to like explore alternative outcomes. Like the
Yeah.
what rule was different.
Yeah. What if? And I think you could also answer the question, so what? So
Yeah.
what you did it this way? So what? And I think that a lot of times when we ask that, if then blah blah, those kinds of questions, the answers we get make us go, oh, oops.
Yeah.
See? But yeah, logical's not easy because emotions ride high and they will override logic if you can't stop, take a breath, and step back. You
Yes.
will you will plunge ahead with all vigor in a not good way because your emotions have taken over and you're no longer being rational or logical going, okay, let me decide this. You get carried away.
That's right. It's just, man.
We all can remember times we've done that, have we? Can we not?
Yeah.
You go error in judgment for sure.
For sure. So next question is, how can I use real world scenarios to teach critical thinking?
I think that, so I believe that life is a conundrum. And a conundrum is the belief that there is no single right answer. There is no one way that's the only way. Very seldom are our choices like that. If I go down this path, these good things will happen and these not so good things will happen. If I go down this path, these good things will happen and these not so good things will happen. If I go to, right, I mean it doesn't matter which path. There's probably a downside. And so when I think about using scenarios to teach critical thinking, I think what you're trying to get them to do is to con- is to inference, to consider, okay, well, what if this happened? What would happen then? To kind of think through the conundrums, right? How will, and then decide which thing could you do or which combinations of things could you do that would get you the best possible results. And I think that too often we rush thinking, but by the same token, it's not good to sit on it and never do anything. You know, Nike says just do it. At some point, you have to pull the trigger. You have to do something with it, or you won't know if your thinking's right or your thinking's wrong. But it really doesn't hurt you to pause. Now, I shouldn't say that wouldn't be never. Obviously, if you're in a there was a helicopter crash on a freeway. And they said that the people in the helicopter were saved. I read about it a couple weeks ago that people in the helicopter were saved because people acted quickly. So, yes, there are times when you need to, you need to act. You need to not stand back and go, hmm, hmm, hmm. But if you have that opportunity to sit back and take a look at it and really think that through in that scenario, then you can make a decision. And I think that it's important to practice different scenarios, right? One's from easy, easy, easy to not so easy. I don't think it would be easy if I were on a freeway and my car I had just avoided in my car to not be hit by a helicopter to go racing in when I see the fumes there. That would be hard for me to do, right? But those people were able to abandon that self fear, that self doubt, and charge in and take care of things. And so, not everybody that was on the freeway did that. Only some people did that. And I think that, okay, where would you be? What could you do? Maybe you're going to be the person who holds back the rest of the crowd. Maybe you're the person who's going to call 911 on the phone, right? You're going to do something, but maybe it's not that. And I think that looks at real world situations, right? If you were in this situation, what would you do? And I do suppose, as far as the scenario is concerned, you could have somebody be in those breakout rooms. What do they call them? Where escape rooms, right? Where they have to think through, how am I going to get out of here? And that they last an hour and you can pull them out, or less than an hour. But they would have had to think critically and logically while they were in there to see if they could find a way out. So anything like that, that's a scenario that gives you an option right? Opportunities, and part of it will work out well, and part of it won't be so hot. Because I think that's really life. Seldom is anything 100%. Woohoo. Oh, you're muted.
Oh
I
man,
know you were being
I
brilliant.
was being so brilliant right now. So I was just going to say though, like I really like, like you were doing right now, like presenting like a realistic like scenario, like something that really happened, like that's something that, what's it called, that teachers can do and use to, like when they're trying to like use like real world like to teach critical thinking. I think that just
Yeah.
helps the yeah. It makes it
And
look
to
makes it
realize
more realistic.
it's okay. Everybody doesn't have to run in to help. There are other ways that you can
You
be of
can
help,
do uh-huh.
right? And that might be better for you than doing the other.
Very
And I
true.
just think we have, and that's why we work in real life. Expanded learning and school are supposed to be practicing grounds for the real world. They're
Yes.
not just this little thing that we do because you have to do it till you're 18.
Yeah, no.
It's trying to help you practice so that you can be prepared for your life, which I
Absolutely.
think is not easy for sure.
The next question is, what activities encourage youth to ask thoughtful questions?
Questioning Socrates many thousands of years ago was great. He always when people asked him a question, he posed one back to them, right? And I think we've gotten to the point where maybe I don't even let you ask me, I'm going to answer it ahead of time. We do a lot of directing and telling. And so I think that you look at types of questions, right? So there's
Yes.
open-ended questions. And open-ended questions have a particular format. They start with the words what or how. And when you do that, what were you thinking when you made that choice? What were you hoping the outcome would be? How did you think you would play that out? Right? Those are thoughtful questions. But you can also ask questions to help kids think more deeply, right? So, what do you think would have happened had you changed that up?
Mm.
How would you how would you make a decision differently if you were working with your grandma and grandpa compared to working with someone who's your age? Right? You can probe and ask deeper and deeper questions. And I think that you teach kids to do that. And the way you teach them to do that is one type of question at a time, but you pal them up with their partners, right? And they do an activity and then you say, okay, break. Now, back and forth 3 times asking questions. And so that they get in the habit of doing that, of not just accepting things, right? But asking, well, why did that happen that way? How did that make sense? And what planet was that going on, right? I think that that's important. And then I think you have to reward them. When kids ask good questions, you need to celebrate. Woohoo! Johnny asked the greatest question. Johnny asked the whole group this question. You need to celebrate good questions. And if you do that, you'll get more of them. So that's, I think, what I would do about questioning and helping kids to learn to ask great questions.
Definitely. I think what it's called, you talk about Socrates, I think it's called like the Socratic circles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And in a Socratic circle, you don't respond with an answer, you respond with a question.
Good question. Uh-huh. Yeah,
Right.
man.
And but you can't say, somebody can't say, uh, what color is the sun? And you say, what color is the moon? Right?
Oh,
I mean, they have to be related. Not that you would ask what color is the sun, but you know what I mean. It has to be related. What were you thinking when you did that? Were you able to consider this? Right? It has to, they have to dovetail together. They can't just be all over the place. But I think that those Socratic circles and learning to ask questions are really helpful.
oh
And
yeah.
you could show a series of slides, right? And what would you ask here? Well, now that you know this, what would you ask here? Now that you know this, what would you add here?
Oh
So that
yes.
really helps them to think. Adding those increments of meaning can be helpful.
I agree with that.
And then
So,
praise, praise, praise when they ask a good one.
oh, there you go.
Yep.
Always.
Yep.
Next question is, how can I use role playing to practice problem solving?
So I think that I think that problem solving has a pattern to it. And a lot of times people solve for the wrong problem. They get all excited and they say, oh, this is the problem. And maybe it's a symptom. So let me give you an example of that. Your body has a respiratory system. And in that respiratory system, when you have a cold, your lungs can feel congested, right? It can feel tight. That same cold can make your throat hurt. It can make your nose run. It can make your ears ache. It can make your eyes water, right? All of those things are symptoms of this cold, right? And too often, what we do is we go, oh, they have a cold. Let's give them cough medicine.
Oh,
Well, yeah, but how did that help my runny eyes? How did it help my ears that hurt? Right? You didn't look at me as a whole. You picked a symptom and said, that's what we'll treat. And I think that that's what we do very often if we're not using a real situation in problem solving. It's easy to find a symptom and say, this is the problem. So when you look at things that happen and you say, oh, well, the problem is this, and somebody else says, no, the problem is this, what you haven't done is uncover the problem, you've uncovered the symptoms.
oh,
So I think if we're gonna do that, to really get to the bottom of problem solving, the first thing we have to do is identify what is the problem. What's going on here? Then I think that the next step would be to say, what's the outcome we would like? What is it we'd like to have happen here? And do we want to add to it, take away from, but what is it we're looking for? And then ask yourself, how would I know it if we came up with a good solution? How would I know it was good? Well, maybe because it addresses more positives than negatives, because there will be negatives no matter what you decide. So maybe that's what you decide your criteria for success is. Then you brainstorm all the possible solutions and then you fit them into the boxes. Okay, this meets our needs. This is about what we need. This is what we want to have happen. And this would be really nice when it happened. And then you can start to problem solve to find something that will take care of all of the things you need. Some of the things that would be that happen in the middle, things that you want, and maybe you'll get lucky and have a nice two or two in there. But if you don't break it down, you will solve the wrong problem. And at the end of the day, you've gotten nowhere. So to me, there's about teaching a protocol. How do you know that you're talking about the real problem, the real concern? Have you talked about it and gone deeply enough so that you know? If not, how are you going to test to see if what you think is right? Because you can always do that before you launch into problem solving, is test to see if how you've identified the problem is correct. Right? So I think that that also is a process. And that's why I think that we start with kids when they're young and we add layer upon layer upon layer, scenario upon scenario upon scenario, so that when they get to the point where they're an adult or even a very influenceable young person, right, they can stand their ground and they can problem solve.
yeah, I like that. Yes. Next question is, how can I teach youth to identify biases in information?
It
Hmm.
is so hard to recognize your own bias. Long before most of you were born, there was a musical, a Rodgers and Hammerstein musical called South Pacific. And in South Pacific, what they were doing was talking about what was going on during World War II in the South Pacific in the war. And obviously, there were the good guys and the bad guys, right? Whichever side you were on, you thought you were on the good guy side. But anyway, this young soldier falls in love with a girl from the islands. And he is ridiculed for that. And he sings this song, and it says, these are the words: you've got to be taught, carefully taught, to hate all the people your relatives hate. You have to be carefully taught. That's what happens with a bias. You are taught that bias, many of them that you have, from the time you were little before you ever knew you were being taught them, because you hear people say things and you go, oh, that's a bad thing, right? And so when you become an adult, you have no idea that that's built into you because you've been walking that walk since you were a child. So what we have to do is stop and stand back and go, oh, right? So I will tell a story on myself, and I hope I don't offend anybody because it really made me stop and consider how biased I was for absolutely no reason. I was listening to television. I was not watching it. And I was listening to a somebody interviewing a woman who was saying that she was collecting at her business, she was collecting underwear for homeless people because she felt like that they really needed to have the opportunity to be able to select new underwear. And she was a cosmetologist. And so she had done amazing work. She'd taken all these things that were donated, she took them to the mission, right? I mean, she did every right thing you could. And when they asked her, what was in this for you? She said, I just felt, I know how good I feel when I have on clean underwear, and I just wanted everybody to have that same experience. Okay. Isn't that noble? That is noble, right? And then they had a break, and I had a chance to be more plugged in, and they started interviewing her again. And I was so surprised about how she looked. She didn't look like she sounded to me, right? I made up a picture in my head of what she looked like based on her words. And then when I saw her, I thought, whoa, you don't look at all like my picture. And then I had to realize how biased I was, that I thought somebody doing this truly good thing needed to look like my picture. She didn't, she was a good human. She didn't have to look like my picture of a good human. She was a good human. And I wondered later if I would have seen her from the beginning, would I have thought, how cool is that? Because that's what I thought when I heard her. Wow, that's amazing to take action on something that you believe is important. That's how a bias works. So when you're in a situation and you go, oh, you think this, right? You create a picture in your head, and then they don't look like your picture. You have to ask yourself, okay, is my picture based on a bias?
Or
And chances are it is. And then you can start to explore that bias. So one time, one of my daughters-in-law was called on jury duty, and she was sitting in the front row. And you know how they question you before
yes.
they seat you,
Oh, yes.
right? So the attorney said to her, if I told you that juror number 4 was a criminal, would you agree with me? And she did this. She leaned forward and she turned and she looked down the row. And he said, do you have to, so you're telling me that how somebody looks helps you make up your mind, right? Well, that's exactly what I experienced. How someone looked influenced how I might have thought about them. And so I think we have to be really aware. And that's why biases are so sneaky, right? You don't even know you have them. You don't. And then you see something and it goes whap, and you go, whoa, whoa, I had a bias about that. And so I think that you can help kids by sharing those stories, but also ask them, right? So maybe when you see the little person up to kick the ball, you think everybody move in because this is the little person, and then they kick it way over your head, right? But your bias said to you, this is a little person, they're not going to be able to do much,
Oh, yeah.
right? And so we all have them. And we need to really realize that It is very possible you are making a decision out of your bias. And so you want to be open and ask other people how they see things so that you can say, okay, I have this big, broad look at how it is, and then I can make up my mind. But like I said, I think bias is everywhere, everywhere. And we need to be totally aware of it and know that there's been biases ingrained in us. And until you can look at those honestly and go, whoa, you can't get rid of them. You have to identify them first.
Oh yeah. Next question is how can storytelling promote critical thinking?
I think storytelling is a lot like role playing, right? It's a story. So if you even took a simple story, let's talk about the three bears. Okay. Most kids have heard the story of the three bears. The three bears, Mama Bear fixes porridge and it's too hot, so they go for a walk in the woods, right? And along comes Goldilocks. She is not thinking critically at all. She just opens the door and walks in. So you could stop it right there and say, all right, what might have happened had Goldilocks thought more critically about going through the door of a house she doesn't know who lives in there, right? So you could stop that story right there. Then the story moves forward, right? And she goes and she sits. I guess does she sit in the chair for? I think she eats the porridge first. And Papa Bear's is too hot, Mama Bear's is too cold, but Baby Bear's is just right. So she eats it all. Back up. Let's think critically. Let's problem solve. What might she have done? Right? Da 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 da. What might she have started to think with hot porridge on the table? Someone might be coming back, right? Somebody was going to have breakfast and they left. There were three someones here that were going to eat, right? There were all kinds of things and clues that she could have gathered. Then she sat in the chair, too hard, too soft, right? And it breaks. Then she decides to go up to go to sleep. Who does that, right? Who walks into a stranger's house, breaks their furniture, eats their food, and decides to take a nap, right? If you were thinking critically, you would go, no, 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 and no. But that's a simple story. And you can go through that story and you can help kids say, what would have been a more prudent thing to do? Wouldn't have been as great in the story, but right? But you could do that with any story. The Three Little Pigs, with Beauty and the Beast, right? All of them. And those are stories kids know and they understand them. So, where would it have made sense to go, whoa, I'm stopping here and I'm thinking this over? Because that's critical thinking. When you stop yourself from just reacting and you start to think it over. So that's what I would do with storytelling. You know, how could it have worked different? And you could do that with Charlotte's Web. You could do that with Harry Potter. You could, I mean, there's not a book that you couldn't do that with, where you could do a stop. Okay, what needs to be considered before we go headlong into this decision? So that's what I'd say. And you're mute. So don't, if you're going to talk, be sure you unmute.
Oh my goodness, I keep forgetting that.
I know.
Definitely, I feel like, storytelling does help you like connect with emotions, to reasoning and learn from diverse perspectives.
Absolutely. Goldilocks saw it one way, Papa Bear saw it another, Mama Bear saw it another, and Baby saw it, right? They all saw it differently. And that's life. We don't all see things the same way, and that's okay,
Yes,
right? And let's embrace that, and then let's find a common ground to move forward.
I
All
agree
right.
100%. Oh, yes.
So
All
you
right.
have
Our
another one?
next, yes. Our next question is, how can I integrate critical thinking into academic lessons?
Okay. Hopefully they're integrated already to a degree. But I think that a lot of times we're busy, even in academics, we're really busy telling kids, right? And
Yeah.
so I think anytime we can stop and maybe if they're doing homework, which would be an ideal place to have them think critically, but it's also important that they get it done, right? Because that their day tomorrow will be better or worse because of it. So maybe the critical thinking isn't about the problem in the homework. It's about thinking about how we should apply ourselves to get this done,
Mm.
right? So what is it you can do to apply yourself so you'll be more likely to get this homework finished in a timely manner? Right. I think we don't, sometimes we get stuck on the academic and we want the content of the academics. And certainly, if you're doing social studies, you're doing science, you're reading literature, even if you're doing math problems, you have to think critically about those and in that genre. And I totally get that. But you also can take a step back from that and talk about how should we organize our time so we're able to move forward effectively. And that's also critical thinking. And you can do that. You don't have to do that certainly with every single subject, but you can do that often enough so that kids start to think about it themselves. They're not reliant on you to remind them. They go, okay, I need to organize it this way so I can get finished in the time frame that I have. So that's what I would do to encourage that with academics. And I probably wouldn't unless there was a key lesson that or something that was really relevant and current. I probably would get the academics on the back end of it. I might say, all right, write down your process and the things that you thought why you came to this conclusion. That would support academics as well.
Definitely. Um, I would say, for like for like for math, like I would ask why in a formula, why a formula works, or just how.
Yeah,
It's like just to get the brains going.
abs- absolutely. Like I said, bring a brain, everybody, right?
There you go. All right. Next question is, how can I encourage youth to reflect on their thoughts processes?
So I think that learning to reflect happens because you have them reflect. You're helping them to build a habit. And there are all kinds of ways that you can do that, that you can debrief. One of the ways that you can debrief is to ask kids, liked best next time. This is what I like best about this lesson, and next time I'd like to have more of that, right?
Oh yeah.
That's a way to do it. Another way that you can do that is three things you learned, and then talk to them about the learning happens in three ways. It's either a confirmation, something you already knew, and now you can go, woo, I was right. Or it's a tweak where you say, oh, okay, I can see I can add that piece. Or you might have a total aha. So I can have you reflect. What was your confirmation? What was your tweak? And did you have an aha? Because
Mhm.
maybe you didn't. And that's okay. So I could have you reflect that way. I could ask you questions. What were you thinking when you heard that Goldilocks ate the small bowl of porridge? Right? I can be very specific and ask you questions and get you to think about that. And that will help your thoughts, right? I can have you do that with a partner, right? I can say, buddy up with the person closest to you and have that conversation. I could put you in inside outside circles where there's a circle on the inside facing out and a circle outside of them facing in and pose a question and have them discuss it. And that's a debriefing. So what we're trying to do is to get them to think. And we're going to do that by asking questions, but we need to try to not ask it in the same format all the time because then it becomes just this thing they do. Another way that I like to debrief with kids is I like to review. This is what I thought was important about this lesson. And then I ask them, what did you think was important about the lesson? Right? And how might you use that, what you learned in your real life? Right? How can you use this learning? And that's often very challenging because they don't know how to translate it
Oh yeah.
into a situation. And yet, isn't that part of what we're trying to teach you? The reason we're teaching you to think critically is not so that we can go, woo, we taught you how to think critically. It's so that you can actually do it on your own and end up with great results because of it. So that's what I think
I like
critically.
that. I would say, like introduce them to metacognition, like
Mm,
about thinking.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. That's hard. And you have to model that. You have to model metacognition so that kids will get it because otherwise good luck to you. But you would say, so I was going to go stand in this corner of the room. And the reason I thought I would do that is because I would be closer to a different group of people than when I stand over here. So I'm thinking about move, right? You're just talking about how you made those decisions. And and most people struggle modeling that. But it is phenomenal when you can do that. And then they'll be able to start doing it as well.
There you
This
go.
was what I was thinking when I made the choice. And that's exactly what you want.
Yes.
Exactly. So I think we have
Right.
time for one more.
Yes, we do. Last question will be, how do I address resistance to critical thinking?
I was talking to a group today and they said, you know, isn't it true that when you tell somebody don't do that, they immediately want to do it? And not that I would say that that's what you want to do, but right? I mean, and we talked about, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? And so what you can do is encourage kids to think critically. I think one of the ways that you can do that if they're resistant is to put them into a group, to put them as a team, so that the other kids are engaged and involved and really thinking critically. And hopefully that will inspire them to come along because they're with their peers. Um, and I think that that's, I think you do that a lot. I am big on teamwork. I think as a team, we're all stronger and we're all working towards the same thing and we'll all learn in different ways. So I would really put them in a situation where not thinking critically would put them on the outs rather
Okay.
than on the ends, right? And
Okay.
then I think there's also, like I've said before, I think there's a process. I think kids have to learn processes and procedures. And when they do, then they're more likely. And you can say, on which step did you get stuck? Well, I got stuck between step 4 and step 5. Okay, let's talk about that, right? Because
Yeah.
it's okay that you got stuck, but where did you get stuck? And how can we remedy that so that you don't get stuck there the next time, right? So I think critical thinking is something we need far more to happen than it does, because it is when we think critically that we can make better decisions. And if we think critically as a group, we'll really make better decisions because we're thinking outside of just me, and we're thinking into this whole.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah.
Definitely. Um, so I would just say, like some youth, they may feel uncomfortable questioning authority or established ideas. So like just to ease them, like I would say, just start with like non-threatening topics, like sports, movies, or school rules,
Yeah,
and celebrating like everyone's like viewpoints.
absolutely. And don't jump down their throat, right?
Yes.
Because then they will just learn that, whoa, don't say a word. And that's the last thing you want. You want people to speak up for
Yes.
sure.
Definitely.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you to these people who've joined our podcast. Thank you to you, Robert, for hosting this. And I'm going to pitch it to you for
So
the
said,
end.
all right. So said, thank you guys for joining us. Like and share this podcast. If you guys have any questions, you guys put them in the comment section. If you guys would like more to learn more stuff on this topic, you also can put your email, and Dr. Cindy Sanders will send you guys an email for more information. And thank you guys, and have a good Thanksgiving. Would it be Thanksgiving coming up?
Or maybe we're doing this the week before Thanksgiving, but I
Oh,
think
yeah.
this is going to air the week after.
After
So
Thanksgiving.
I
There
hope
you
you
go.
had a good Thanksgiving,
Oh, yeah, there you go.
right?
Yes.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.